I've just found most clients will report like, I'm usually pretty fearful to move through that range of motion, but with the device on, I feel comfortable doing that. And it's kind of starting to break down that kinesiophobia or those fear patterns that might be holding within that client. And that's one of the greatest benefits of using the device so far for me, just in clinical practice as an osteopath.
I'm Garrett Salpeter, and I believe that the most powerful and transformative way to help people recover from pain and injury, heal from trauma, and reach their highest levels of fitness and performance is to focus on the nervous system. In this podcast, we'll share knowledge from the frontiers of neuroscience and inspirational stories of how applying that knowledge has empowered people from all walks of life to heal, adapt, and grow. Welcome back to the NeuFit Undercurrent podcast, and today I have some new friends joining us from Australia. So we have Dylan Steele, an osteopathic physician in New South Wales, and I'm excited to have him on because I've always been interested in osteopathic medicine. For people who aren't as familiar with it, it's a type of manual medicine that actually is the parent of chiropractic. So some people are more familiar with chiropractic, some more with osteopathic, but it's either way a form of physical medicine with physical manual manipulation, and we'll get to learn more from Dylan about what it is and how he's using it and how, of course, it complements and combines with the Neubie. And Dylan has also become the lead instructor for our partners who are promoting the Neubie in Australia and New Zealand. So you may have seen him on our social media recently, and we'll certainly enjoy getting to know him better here on this podcast. And then we also have joining us one of his finest patients, Barney Miller, and his wife, Kada. And Barney has a fascinating story. So 25 years ago, he broke his neck in a car accident, and he's recently begun working with Dylan and our colleagues down in Australia. And he's on here. I won't spoil any of the story, but he's here to share some of the updates on his journey. So welcome, all of you.
Thanks, Garrett.
Hello.
Hey, Garrett. How are you?
Yes. I'm really excited for this one here. Dylan, let's start with you. And can you please begin by giving us a background on osteopathic? We haven't talked about yet on this podcast, haven't talked about specifically osteopathic medicine, that type of physical medicine, what it is. So can you give us a little bit of a background, please, on what osteopathic medicine is and where, in your experience, you've seen it really thrive and really be able to help patients?
Yeah, great question. So osteopathy, like you mentioned, it's not too dissimilar into the field of chiropractic medicine as well, where we treat the body as a whole, look for the relationship between the structure of the body and the function of the body. And traditionally we utilize some different techniques that what chiropractors wouldn't used to use. With chiropractic medicine, most people are used to that spinal manipulation or high velocity, low amplitude thrust techniques. As osteopaths, we're taught an array of other techniques to help the body recover from injury and restore the function of that area of the body. And they're a lot more subtler than some of those direct techniques that you might have had with the chiropractor or osteopath. We're both taught those type of techniques, but we kind of use them more sparingly for the most part as osteopaths and try to make a change with a lower level grade technique to bring and restore function back to the area. On top of that, we have a lot of background education around nutrition and other holistic models of care, and we'll integrate them into our clinical practices as osteopaths, and just to try to help with our clients restore and get back to where they want to be or where they once were. So yeah, it's a great modality, and I'm super proud to be an osteopath, particularly here in Australia, because there's not too many of us. Physiotherapy seems to be the larger cohort of allied health practitioners here. So yeah, it's a great space to be working and operating in.
Awesome. And what types of patients then in your osteopathic practice, are you working, are you doing more physical medicine space? I realize obviously now you are with the Neubie. Have you always been doing that, or have you been doing more chronic disease biochemistry and both? What's sort of the mix of patients you've been seeing historically?
Yeah, Historically, for me, I've always done movement-based therapies, like just traditional rehab on top of hands-on manual therapy within my clinical practice. And that's been a mix of just strength and conditioning, Pilates, done some training through the dynamic neuromuscular stabilization systems, um, and integrating all those type of practices together to try to help my clients manage their presentations. And then since adopting the NeuFit method within clinical practice and the Neubie, it's just added that extra layer of potential of healing for most people when they walk through the door. It's been quite an easy transition, really, from what I was doing to now applying the protocols that are offered through the NeuFit method. So it's been really, as a clinician, it's been quite easy, but at the other end of the spectrum, it's been quite a lot more rewarding seeing these clients move through certain presentations, which you might predict to be a usual time frame, but that time frame's just been a little bit shortened due to the Neubie and the microcurrent and the direct current through that device that we use.
Awesome. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts in terms of whether it be, philosophically or logically or whatever it might be, in terms of how you feel like the manual therapy techniques and the Neubie work well together. Like, I've talked in the past with different clinicians about how, sometimes, for example, people will do manual therapy, and I think we know now that, most of the time we're not really breaking up scar tissue, but if even with manual therapy, if there's functional changes, it's usually neurological in nature. It's sort of the underlying mechanism is a change in the nervous system. And so we've seen, for example, where there seems to be a nice complement of, you can do manual therapy techniques to open up new range of motion, and then, for example, use the Neubie to help activate and help really own that range of motion or close the active and passive gap. So I'm curious, in terms of how you're looking at treatment, what ways that you see osteopathic manual medicine and the Neubie complementing each other, overlapping, similarities, differences, kind of anything in that domain.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the best things I've found with the two. So traditionally, as an osteopath, with some of the techniques we'll use a technique called muscle energy technique, where we'll take a tissue, let's say the bicep, we'll push against the wrist, let go, and try and lengthen that bicep out over time. But with the introduction of the Neubie, we're able to use let's say the scanning protocol that's offered through the device, locate certain sensitivity areas in the body, and then adopt those traditional osteopathic techniques such as muscle energy technique and try to restore that function of the joint. So we take the example of, say, the hip, and we're trying to bring more hip flexion into the body. We can place the Neubie pads through the hamstrings, where the hamstring might be reducing the amount of flexion you're getting in the hip, and get the client to push against you and let go, push and let go, and lengthen that hamstring out, but also allowing the current from the machine to reinforce the nervous system to want to feel comfortable and safe to explore those ranges of motion where it might not have been previously. And for me as a clinician, from comparing not using the Neubie versus using the Neubie in those type of circumstances, I've just found most clients will report like, I'm usually pretty fearful to move through that range of motion, but with the device on, I feel comfortable doing that. And it's kind of starting to break down that kinesiophobia or those fear patterns that might be holding within that client. And that's one of the greatest benefits of using the device so far for me, just in clinical practice as an osteopath.
That's beautifully said. I appreciate that perspective very much. And I think that makes a lot of sense. It's certainly in line with how we look at things. And yeah, very good. I really, really like that perspective. I definitely want to dive in and talk about some more specific experiences you've had with patients And let's also use that as a segue to introduce Barney and Kada here. So, Barney and Kada,
Yeah.
will say hello to you. And can you
Hello.
please tell a little bit of your story, Barney, so we can get to know your history?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, back in '99, I actually was involved in a passenger in a car accident. Um, Back then, I was a young competitive surfer, just outdoor guy, a whitewater rafting river guy, just one of those fully active humans. And yeah, on our way up to the river, we the driver lost control, and he got ejected, and the car rolled, and I ended up copping the brunt force of a tree when we slammed into it. So I was trapped in the car and actually broke my C6 vertebrae, burst fracture. So with the pressure of the tree and the car crushing above my head, it actually pushed my head into my lap, which broke my neck that forward. And rushed to hospital. Got told I would. I was on a ventilator. I got told I'd be on a ventilator for the rest of my life. I got told I'd never move my right arm again, and I got told that there's definitely no chance of ever standing or gaining any movement below the injury. And yeah, I guess that was
Well, so then
that was
let's
pretty hard to take as a young
so
active.
then let's
Um,
so
yeah,
let's take it from there then, because if people are watching you, they can obviously see that you have some movement here. So then let's go through
oh
that.
yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I can move my right arm, which is awesome.
So let's go through chronologically. So there was a period of time here where there was no move. Can you just kind of walk us through, chronologically how things
Yeah,
evolved during those last 24 years?
yeah, definitely, yeah, far out. This podcast could go for like a couple of days if you wanted to. So originally, so the first thing I had to do, being on a ventilator and I had a tracheotomy, I once I got told that I'd have that for the rest of my life. That was the first thing I had to try and overcome. So it was trying to learn how to breathe again. So originally, I asked them, but they were very reluctant about capping off the air because of just of what had happened. So I was just like, can I really want to try and like breathe by myself. So they go, okay. So they originally just capped it off, and that was probably that was a really scary moment when it first happened, because it was almost like I was suffocating because I couldn't breathe by myself. So they ended up having to put the machine straight back in again. And so that was the beginning, I guess. Lasted probably a couple of seconds, and then we had to wait 24 hours to do the next time. Then the next time it went for 40 seconds. I could hold my breath for 40 seconds, and then I'd have to cap it off. And then it went to 2 minutes, and then from 2 minutes it went to 5 days actually. And so I was breathing, and everything was going okay. And then they said, if you can last 7 days, we'll take the machine off, and we'll let you breathe by yourself. So those last 2 days were probably one of the most scariest moments ever, because if I had to get through these 2 days, but if I didn't get through these 2 days, I'd have to go back on the machine, and they wouldn't really try it again. So so it got to 7 days, took the machine out. That was the first thing. That was one of the first obstacles I got to overcome. And then it led to trying to work out what was next in my thing. So trying to get movement in my right arm was, I was lucky. I constantly had family and friends around that were always pushing and encouraging me to like just try moving it, even if they lifted my arm and tried to move it for me. And oh man, it's So that was, and then I ended up getting into the rehab, and just started working on that. But and as sort of things went on, it sort of, I got little bits of movement, and then it just sort of, everything sort of plateaued pretty much for, it was probably, 10 years, like everything sort of plateaued. It was actually 9 years. Well, when did I meet you? I met Kate 8 years after my accident. So that was almost an incredible fire under me, because obviously I wanted to make my life better, but I wanted to make our life better together. So I, we just, Kate went on a research rabbit hole, and just trying to work out where to go from there. And we ended up finding a place in California called Project Walk, which is now shut, unfortunately. But it's a kinesiology based repetitive exercise program, and that was kind of where, that was sort of the start of something pretty incredible for not only my journey but for our journey together. We feel free to jump in whenever you want. Like, I guess.
Yeah. Well, when I first met Barney, he was 8 years post-injury, and he could barely lift his arms up without getting lopsided. He was he was very confident in, like, emotionally, but not confident physically at that stage. And we had this conversation about him having these goals to walk again, and he had it with, that was the one thing that he held in his, like, his whole being from the moment of his accident, I guess. And that was one of the things that made me fall in love with him from day one, was that conversation of seeing someone who believed in something that externally to the world, to science, to everything else seemed so impossible. But for him, he held that so dearly. And that was a journey I wanted to be part of. And so, went down the rabbit hole of finding different things.
Where it originally started. So as another conversation I had with a good friend of mine, Mick Fanning. He's a professional surfer, and we were just talking one day, and he just sort of wanted to talk about what my goals were and stuff, and he goes, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to walk again." And he was like, "Okay, well, I've been working with this trainer. Her name was Jan Kart, and she's a Czech Czech trainer on the Gold Coast." And so I started working with her, and that sort of introduced both of us to the kinesiology journey, actually. And so she sort of got, like, sort of just found, like, opened our world up to that, and it just happened to be that I was getting a piece of workout equipment, and the person at the store said, "Oh, a guy in a wheelchair came in here just the other day and said he just got back from America, and there's this incredible program, kinesiology-based program." So that was when we first started to look into, like, I'd been overseas, but this was going to be a journey to California where we'd have to almost move to California for 3 months to start. And then, so we ended up, packing up our life, jumping on a plane and going.
Everyone thought we were crazy.
Yeah, everyone did think we were crazy. There was a lot of people that thought, like, that we were,
they were
delusional, that, like, just, the outside world, when you take that step to thinking outside the box, it definitely scares and is very shocking for the outside world, that's for sure. So we went to California, and that was where my body first started waking up. And
I remember his first day too, that, like, he was pretty nervous, and he had his first assessment, and they were like, "Okay, like, 10 years post, what are your goals?" And he's like, "Well, I want to walk." And they're like, "Okay, like, how about we set some, like, smaller goals first?" And he was like, okay. And then they're like, can you do this, this, and this? And he was like, he actually had never tried to do those things before. So he was like, yeah, I guess I could do that. And he kind of went through this like fake it till you make it kind of process of one by one, he started to kick these goals. And it was, I literally witnessed his body just coming back online. It was like this dormant volcano that had just been waiting for the right trigger and the right forces in order to be able to erupt. And it was like, yeah, I just witnessed him just turn all the lights back on. And yeah, like the moment, I think, which was the most incredible moment, was when he first locked out his legs for the first time. They were practicing standing with all these props, and for some reason his body doesn't like too many props around him. It's like his body needs to be in that little bit of uncertainty in order for it to really kick in to do the work itself. And so then one day they were like, okay, we're just going to try it. We're just going to see what happens. We're just going to try and stand you up. We'll have people standing around just in case. And when he locked out his legs, that was the most incredible moment. And he was looking at himself in the mirror going
it was,
like mind games.
Yeah, it was almost like it was messing. It was like, it was an emotional roller coaster, obviously, to look at yourself standing and seeing yourself lock your legs out for the first time, which is something that you got told you'd never do. And so that was a journey, a mind journey in itself, just realizing, like, you can achieve so many things inside, but to see it for the first time was definitely it was an incredible thing, but also a very strange thing to see, I guess, as well.
Yeah. And so that was 2010. So that was the year after the first year that we started going over there. And then from there, it literally became leaps and bounds. Like the more we realized, the more that he was moving and the more he was getting put into these different positions and having the support around him to, tell his body it was okay to be in these positions, the more feedback he was getting and the more connection that he was rebuilding. And that continued for the next 10 years until 2019. The end of 2018, he ended up having kidney failure, and that was from a surgery that didn't go to plan, and which then led to a further 12 surgeries in 2019, and then him being in a hospital bed for 18 months. That was pretty low point in both of our lives. But then again, after being in a bed for 18 months, we were worried that he wasn't going to be able to bounce back like he had before. And again, bit by bit, just taking it an hour at a time, like just trialing different things. And
it was a journey. That was a journey where I had nothing. I couldn't do anything. I just lay in bed. Like I couldn't even really sit up or anything like that for nearly 18 months. And I had to go on a real journey inside. Like that's where I really started picking up like the breathing, the Wim Hof breathing, the meditation, like a lot of Joe Dispenza meditation, and just I had to go deep because it was hard to take, not being able to move at all. So,
and that was when I heard I reached out to Ben Greenfields actually on Instagram. I had no idea if he was going to reply or anything. I was just in that moment, like watching him just kind of waste away in the hospital bed. I was like, there has to be something out there that can be beneficial for him. And so in that time, I reached out to him saying, like, this is the situation. Have you come across anything in your interviews or just in your own research? And straight away he put me onto you guys. He said he's like, the Neubie machine is incredible. That's the first place that I would start. And they're getting really good results right now with all sorts of different injuries. So, and even spinal injuries. So that was the very beginning of me going, okay, what is this machine? And I then listened to the podcasts, and I think we must have listened. I think we've listened to every single podcast that you've been on. And then we got distracted by life as he started to get better and start living again. We ended up buying a camper van and traveling Australia, and we kind of just put everything on hold for a bit just to live, because we realized that our whole relationship actually for 13 years at that stage had been all around just goal orientated things, which was amazing, and it was the most incredible life. But we realized it wasn't sustainable for us to keep living like that. So we had to, just find the joy back in life again, and find our why again. And 2021, that was when we traveled Australia, and we just lived.
But just living like that, the body, we realized the body still adapts, and I was still going leaps and bounds in my journey just by doing everyday life, like in the camper van.
You had to stand in order to get anywhere.
I had to stand to get anywhere in the van. So I had to stand to get in the driver's seat. I had to stand to get in the chair to go to the bed. I had to stand from the chair to the bed, stand from the bed to the bathroom. Like so
he had a whole new mindset about what his journey could look like. And it not having to be like slaving away day after that day, missing out on life and
nature. Nature was a big thing, I think, that my body needed, like, and everyone needs it, obviously. So being in nature, the body just picks up the energy from the around what I immersed myself in, and it was incredible to sort of see that not pushing and trying yourself, trying so hard, you can still go in leaps and bounds.
Yeah. And then when we got home, that's kind of when things started to fall apart again for Barney physically. His just all the scar tissue damage from all of the surgeries that he had all on his right side had kind of like frozen his body into a certain pattern that then was putting strain on every other aspect of his life. And
it was like twisting my body. So it was twisting my pelvis. It was like moving my ribs in a weird way, twisting my rib cage, really messing with my like urinary tract system and all my right side, like, and then
then that was the moment where I was like, okay, it's time to go deep again. And I bought your book. And I remember we were on a camping trip, and I just started reading it, and then I was like, I have to read this out loud. It was before the audiobook came out. So I read the entire book to Barney as he was driving. And I remember reading Amy's story, and I just burst into tears. And he's like, are you okay? And I was like, I have to read you this part. I have to read it to you. And that was the moment for me that I was like, we need one of these machines. I don't know how we're getting it. Like, just, I'm going to like keep writing, like reaching out, writing to them until someone like, I had no idea how it was going to work, but I just knew that this machine was going to be a massive part of the next chapter for us. And fast forward to getting in contact with the team in Sydney with Sam and Adam. And that first week that we were with them, Barney was in a pretty bad place at that stage physically. Like he was just in so much pain that he wasn't able to be even up in his chair for long periods of time without just being in extreme chronic pain, which was a totally new thing for him, because he was one of the lucky ones that didn't experience neurological pain prior to any of that. So it was a totally different ball game that we were entering. And I remember him getting put on the machine.
It was just the
literally
abs.
just the abs.
It was just
so
the
that was
abs.
the first thing that they put the machine on, just to kind of, they did the mapping, and then they were like, okay, well, we knew that part was very sensitive. Put them on the abs, and literally within 30 seconds, he started connecting with his feet, and his feet started moving like inwards and outwards, like not involuntary. It was him actually. He's like, and he was looking down at his feet, and he's like, are you seeing this? And we're like, yes. And then again, the tears started. And that was a moment that I will never forget, because in 24 years, he'd never been able to connect with his feet like that. He'd been able to stand, but just not that flexion he'd never been able to access.
No.
And then that continued. And then, and then my own experience, at the end of that session, he's like, okay, I'm going to just put you on the master reset to Barney. He's like, would you like to try the master reset? I'm like, okay. And I had no idea what to expect. And I kind of just went in there going, oh, I'm just doing a master reset. I'm literally just going to zen out and might have a little nap. And my foot just started going crazy. Like my right foot was like cramping up, and I was like, what is happening here? And I told them, I was like, oh, my foot's like, that's where I'm feeling it the most. It's going like this. And they're like, oh, well, have you had an injury there? And I was like, yeah, actually 16 years ago, I had a injury where I tripped up the stairs. It looked like I had a cricket ball on top of my foot, but every scan that I had showed that there was nothing wrong with it, but clearly there was. And from that day, I wasn't able to do a proper lunge on that foot. And by the end of the 15 minutes, I stood up and I was like, my foot feels so different, like feels super loose. I'm like, I'm just going to try something. And I did a full lunge. And it was funny because I was like, I witnessed what happened to Barney, and I witnessed his body doing all these amazing things. But that was my first experience for myself of having something within myself that I just assumed that I would be living with forever, even though that's not my mindset. But I kind of just forgot about it. And that was just how I lived my life. And it changed my whole gait pattern. But so since, and then within 24 hours, the scar tissue in my foot was like almost gone. And that was, so that's my incredible story of the Neubie.
This is fabulous.
And so that's a story that I tell all my friends now of, it's just been the most incredible gift. And then same thing with Barney, the scar tissue has been just breaking down, and the connection that he's been making has been absolutely mind-blowing. As of last week, he now can squeeze his abs on and off.
Yeah, which is really bizarre. Yeah.
He's getting a six-pack.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like, I've never been able to contract my abs before, like, but now I can like, and then like contract them, and which is totally new, but it's after 24 years, it's it's incredible.
Wow. Amazing progress. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sorry.
A thank
And
you
that's the end of the podcast.
I'll give a thank you to Ben Greenfield too for making the
Yeah,
introduction. I didn't realize that was how you learned about us in the first place. But yeah, he's been
yeah,
a good friend and supporter over the years. So that's great.
yeah. And I'm sure he gets so many messages all the time. So I was just so grateful that I was one of the lucky ones that he replied to.
Yeah. Yes. Big thank you to Ben here.
Thank you so much for listening to the Undercurrent podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how NeuFit and the Neubie can impact your life, please visit our website at www.neu.fit. That's neu.fit. So you can learn more about how it might integrate into your professional practice, how you can use it as a patient, and you can also connect with our team there.
So I do want to turn it back over to Dylan for a moment here to get your perspective. So we heard this experience where Barney's working with our colleagues there at the event when they first met, and then has this experience which is illuminating, and we get some movement of his feet. These cool kind of instantaneous breakthroughs, and then obviously we have to transition into, okay, what are we going to be doing day to day to kind of move this process along? So it's a unique opportunity here where we have your therapist on, so we can talk to both patient and clinician at the same time. So can you share, Dylan, from your perspective, with Barney's permission, of course, can you share sort of your thinking in terms of where, obviously, Barney's had these ups and downs, sort of your functional assessment of where he is, what the priorities are, and then how you've been guiding him in this ongoing use of the Neubie to try to maintain that positive trajectory and continue to make progress.
Yeah, and thanks Barney and Kada for sharing your story there. It's such an amazing story. I guess for me, the one thing that struck me was Barney's strong determination to walk. I think his primary focus had been just around the gait mechanics and learning how to stand. So when he came and saw me, I was just attempting him to reduce his kind of goal to something a little bit more simple around working on that abdominal control more and trying to stimulate that midline structures to get strong from the cranial base down to the sacrum, and then move outwardly from there to then wanting to support himself in different positions from prone, supine, side lying, seated, and then come up into a standing position. So try to transition him through all of these different developmental kinesiological stages that we are trained with under the DNS protocols. So the one thing that I found most sensitivity for him was just around that cervicothoracic junction, and just trying to get him to engage in the prone position and improve that head control was my first kind of introduction of using the device with him to that therapeutic level to try to advance him to where he wants to be with his goal. And then having him explore similar movement patterns with the neck, but in different positions. So then the head can start to lead where the body wants to go. And then using the Neubie device coupled with those traditional rehab strategies that I've taught, you can just see that the muscles start to get stronger and the movement becomes a lot more fluid. And then when we start to move into that final endpoint of wanting to stage, he can feel relaxed on his feet. He can breathe comfortably. He feels relaxed in that stage. So that had been my rehab strategy. Last time I saw Barney and Kada, they came up with a couple of their trainers from their local area, and we did an educational day for them two guys and trying to implement, my knowledge base with theirs. Fortunately for Kada and Barney, one of their amazing trainers, Regan, he had some background in similar training as I had with the DNS stuff, so we talked pretty extensively around that and trying to utilize those type of protocols with the Neubie. So yeah, I think it's been an amazing journey so far, and seeing him decrease this tone, like the side bent right rotated right kind of position from having that multiple surgeries in the abdominal region to wanting to open up through there with some traditional just osteopathic intervention and the Neubie glove that we can use. So we can put a glove on and it can conduct the current through there, and we can do some of these fascial works with it. So utilizing that type of technique around that place of trauma, I will use for that loose word, but trying to just encourage the body to want to feel comfortable and open up into this space where it was once before after all the surgery insult. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and you know, Barney's case one, but there's so many individuals like Barney that walks through my door that have heard down the podcast chain. Ben Greenfield, again, that was one of my early connections with the Neubie and the NeuFit method, was through Ben Greenfield's podcast with you, and Dave Asprey's one with you as well. So there's so many, and Dr. Terry Walls well. So all these people that are living with these certain limitations within their life are catching on to the potential of the device, and they walk through my door like Barney with a really unique story with a lot of background, and within a short consecutive time we can see just leaps and bounds with their presentations. And it's been, as a therapist and an osteopath, it's brought a new level of, fun to my clinical practice. Some things that I would have thought as, not possible. I walk away at the end of the day and I go, wow, we just made that body just made a really big change in a short period of time. And the implications of that change have been beyond what anyone could ever do for them with traditional rehabilitation strategies. And for me as a therapist, it's just so exciting to be a part of that, and super proud to be, doing that for people and allowing them to explore these spaces that they once thought they might not be able to explore again. So yeah, it's been great.
I'm just honored and delighted and so happy to hear that. I mean, that, these types of responses are what make it all worthwhile. So to hear that. So I appreciate that. I also want to go back a few minutes when you're talking about the progression, going through some of the developmental progressions, talking about midline stabilization. You mentioned DNS a few times, and DNS is this wonderful program that came out of the Yanda and the Prague school, these Czech therapists and researchers, and it's something that I don't think. I'm trying to think. I don't believe we've covered on this podcast yet. So can you just give a little bit of an overview? I do want to come back and get a status update on where Barney is now too. And, since we followed his story up until the first initial uses of the Neubie, so we want to fill in that. But since it's come up a couple times, can you just give us, please, a DNS 101, sort of high-level overview on what it is too, just so everyone understands?
Yeah, I'll try to explain it in a basic language that anyone could understand. So as infants, we go through these developmental milestones, and at these different milestones, we'll see the nervous system wire in certain movement patterns, and that might be the ability to roll onto our side, then onto our front, push our head and neck off and chest off the ground, and learn to rotate so we can look around within space, learn to reach from that position, learn to come up into a seated position, learn to reach in that seated position, learn to come into a crawling position, up into high kneeling, and then a squatting, and hopefully, gait walking. So under the DNS protocols, we're taught how to identify kind of weaknesses within those chains within certain populations, and let the nervous system try to re-explore where those weaknesses might be with certain positions, with the emphasis on breathing and learning how to increase your intra-abdominal pressure and forming the movement from around that improved intra-abdominal pressure. It takes a lot of awareness and skill to execute them quite well. But for someone like Barney, where we can see that the limitations are all midline, if we can bring that back to that midline and structure everything from there and work outwardly, then the end goal of, say, learning how to stand can be executed a little bit more easier. It has its roots tied within the Czech Republic physiotherapy, and it has had a long history of changes with the influences throughout the year. And currently, as it stands, it's being taught by Dr. Pavlov Collage, and there are numerous therapists around the world that will utilize their principles and utilize them well.
Awesome. That was DNS in 2 minutes. You nailed it.
So good.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
It can go a lot deeper than that, but I think the language can go over a lot of people's heads. So I'll keep it simple for now. But if you'd like to learn a little bit more, their website is fantastic, and they've also got a great book for therapists, other therapists like myself, if they wanted to grab a hold of that. But yeah, the language, for a lot of people that don't have a background in movement education, it can really go over your head and get lost. Yeah.
I will say that the courses are excellent resources for people who are interested in continuing education for clinicians, and a lot of the DNS movements, just like Dylan said, our experience is exactly the same, where when we have the Neubie on, we're trying to enhance input so that we can get more out of more neuromuscular reeducation effect or benefit from whatever movements we'd be doing. And it's almost always active rather than passive. So we're doing movements, and the movements from DNS pair exceptionally well with the Neubie. So that is another combination there that is very valuable. So I appreciate you, Dylan, sharing some of that. And let's go back to Barney and Kada here for a moment. So we had progress for this 10-year period where you're going to California and seeing this facility, training at this facility consistently for these months at a time. We had regression with a series of surgeries and other health challenges and kidney failure. Then we had a period of driving around in the RV and the camper and experiencing nature and seeing little glimpses of some of the old function coming back. We had this breakthrough in that first experience with the Neubie, where we had some glimpses of hope. And then how's it been going in the months since then? What's our current status?
It's been incredible. So I'll circle back a tiny bit because I want to really give a shout out to Laura from who works with you guys. She was one of the first people I spoke with as a trainer, and she had a lot of experience in spinal injury and other injuries. So yeah, she wrote up a program for us. So right now we're sort of trying to stick to that program and mixing in some of the stuff that Dylan's taught us, and so at like where it stands right now, excuse the pun, is my body, being able to contract my abs. I now have the machine on when I'm standing, or whatever active stuff I'm doing now, I put the machine on, and whether it's doing all core work or standing in parallel bars, and it's actually,
he loves the bicep thing that he learnt from
Dave Asprey, the bicep tricep. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Awesome.
But it's so funny, I've been getting flickers in my triceps, and my whole tricep strength has come in leaps and bounds as well as I'm starting to but I'm also working on something that Dylan taught us as well, where we put a pad on the lower vertebrae where the nerve endings are to either the quad or the hammy and stuff like that. And so I have a pad on the hammy and a pad. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it S1 or something, or around that? Where Dylan taught us, so we're in that area just to which is so, I never even thought about that, but the way the Neubie works with connecting from that nerve ending to the muscle has been incredible. So yeah, just spending as much time standing with either Kate or in my parallel bars with my trainer, and yeah, just and really still breaking down. Well, yeah, I don't have much of the scar tissue in my stomach, in my right hand side of my stomach anymore, which is life changing. Like the pain that I was going through, and the machine has just relieved me on is, yeah, as Kada said before, I've never experienced sort of neurological pain through my whole journey on this, with my accident and with my injury. But man, pain is debilitating more than anything I think I've ever been through, and this machine just literally diminishes it. And that's if that alone was the only thing it did, which it's not, because it's doing so much more. But someone who's looking in that direction to get rid of pain, it'll change your life.
Wow, that's fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. I think we've kind of hinted at the answer to this question, but I'm curious to hear from you. So I'll ask specifically, you were doing this other wonderful exercise-based rehab program and making progress. Now you're doing, similar consistent exercises with the Neubie. How would you describe the trajectory or the rate of change and progress with the Neubie?
Yeah, I think what I've found is that there's a much better connection. Like with all the other program, and that I was just doing it and it was happening in my body, and I obviously had a lot of sensation with it, but this has just stepped up the whole mind body connection, and being able to zone in on things and zone in on muscles, and has been where, and it's just ignited my body in a different way. Like my body, it's funny, my body just feels different.
And it's not fatiguing as fast either. So whereas before with traditional movement, his body, like he would finish a session and just not even be able to talk really, because it was both emotionally and physically draining. But now, like, he's still pretty wiped after it, but you bounce back so much faster.
Yeah.
And then we also just do the master reset as well, and that kind of just brings him back into balance to then be able to go again.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
to try different things. And it's so it's just so exciting because we're still really just scratching the surface on what this machine can do. We actually did because his right side was so significantly needed more work than the left side. We started splitting the channels of right and left. And then even I saw a thing, it was a trial that they were doing in America for bladder control for people with spinal injuries, and they were using a type of stimulation for that. And I just kind of zoomed in on the pictures that I could see of people doing it, and I was like, I'm just going to just try it and see what happens with the Neubie. And yeah, you found that doing that setting with it's literally just putting them around the bladder area.
Around the oblique sort of area, or back,
and then on the abs, and
we literally have all the pads. There's 8 pads. And it literally, it's if they do, because sometimes if I do get sort of a bit of a what do you call it, an irritated urinary tract or some sort of thing that's making me want to pee a lot more, I put them on and I do that. I just do it more often
and it just
now.
Helps to relax.
It just relaxes everything, which has been so good.
And connect. It's relaxing and connecting.
At the same time.
But
awesome.
It's been so fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear it's been helping. And obviously I knew some of this story, but I'm hearing some new details and I'm so glad to hear it's helping you in all these ways. And I trust that I know that everyone listening to this, is going to draw inspiration from the patient perspective, listening to you, Barney and Kada, and from a clinician perspective, they're going to draw inspiration from you, Dylan, in terms of how you're taking this wonderful skill set that you have and then adding to it with the Neubie. So you can get, you're getting great results, and then you can get great results plus, and then some, and make it happen even faster, even more significantly. So I think there's a lot of wonderful content here. I'm grateful to all three of you for joining us here. As we wrap up, a few notes here. So for people who are interested in connecting with our team in Australia and New Zealand, there's a neufit.com.au for the Australian domain. You can go there to that URL, and then Dylan's clinic is called New Horizon Osteopathy. New spelled NEU, which I love there, like neurological, like NeuFit. New Horizon Osteopathy.com.au. And let's see, where else? I wanted to make sure to mention those two URLs. Where else can people, Dylan, find you first? I know you're on social media. Where are the best places to interact?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and if they need to reach out, just hit the email there, the website link. If anyone has any inquiries around the Neubie and the NeuFit method, please be in contact with NeuFit Australasia or Garrett, and they can forward you on to us, and we can be in connection and have those conversations if they need to happen.
Awesome. And are you running formal trainings yet in doing on-site trainings for people in Australia, or where?
Yeah, we've already started to do some workshops for other allied health practitioners that have shown interest within utilising the device within their clinical practice. And again, if you want any more information on that, you can be in contact through socials or via email, and we can link you into the next workshop space that's happening. At the moment, we've got the NDIS conference happening in May down in Sydney, where we'll be showcasing the device for anyone looking to experience that. So if you would like to join us, please come on down, and myself and Sam will be there.
Fabulous. And I think actually one of my colleagues from America is going to be down there also.
Yeah, I've had conversations with Sarah, so I'm really looking forward to connecting with her. She seems like she's got a wealth of knowledge around some topics that we would love to cover. So yeah, can't wait to connect with Sarah. That's going to be great.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and gosh, I want to get down there at some point.
Yeah,
it'll happen. It'll happen at some point.
Would love to
do a Neubie tour.
That's right. Yes, Barney and Kada. Then same question to you: where can people follow you on social media? Where I know obviously I see you both on Instagram, but where are the best places to follow along on your journey?
Yeah, probably Instagram. Like Barney's is Barney_Miller. Mine is Kada Miller. And our website's youandmecollective.com.au. Awesome. And that's kind of got our whole life journey on there. We have a film, a documentary about our life journey, and the early stages of Barney's recovery. And yeah, we'll have to do a part 2 now.
Yeah.
And then we've also got a book as well that you can check out. And yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. So it's literally spelled out YOUANDME, YouAndMe collective.com.au. So for people to go to that website. And there's a link to find your book on there too, right?
Yes. Yeah, you'll be able to find everything on there.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the three of you coming on here. I want to do this again, actually, to get the perspective of the patient and then the clinician, talk about, get the subjective experience from the patient and then hear the clinical reasoning behind it. It's actually turned into a fun, possibly new format that we'll want to use again in the future. But
this is just the beginning. Wait to see. Stay tuned, everyone.
Yes.
It's going to be some big things going down.
That's right. That's right.
And thank you so much, Garrett. Thanks so much for all your work and bringing this incredible device into
And making
our
it,
worlds.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, you're welcome, and thank you for being the reason to do it. And one of our core values is success through the success of others, and to see the impact that it's making, through Dylan's work, that it's making in your lives, Barney and Kada. I'm just immensely grateful and really excited to continue on this journey here. So I thank you, Dylan. I really appreciate the work that you're doing there. I love this combination. Barney and Kada, you are an inspiration, and keep going. Keep sharing your story. You're inspiring a lot of people along the way. And everyone else who listened to this, thank you so much. And we will see you on the next episode of the Undercurrent podcast. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.